Welcome back to the HR Exchange podcast. As always, my name is David Rice. I'm the editor of the HR Exchange Network and your host. And today we are joined by Ben Whitter. He is the author of The Employee Experience. Ben is going to be joining us at our upcoming Employee Experience event, and he's got a new book coming out, which we'll get to talking to a little bit about today. But welcome, Ben, to start.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, David.
All right. So I kind of wanted to start the discussion, though, obviously we're in this very interesting time for employee engagement, employee experience. It's become a big focus for a lot of companies over the last year, especially. And I'm kind of wondering, do you think that companies have adapted to the circumstances well? And, what are some of the key areas of experience that are still lacking, maybe?
I think they have, because generally, I don't think they've had a choice through the pandemic. They've had to go deeper into what work is and how it affects people at a very human level, given that most of us have been in our living rooms and kitchen tables and offices at home. And again, there's been a lot of uncertainty and insecurity from frontline workers and people still working in frontline services. So I think they've had to really reassess, what is work and what is life, and how are the two really coming together to connect in a way that works for not just the business, but also for human beings as well. And that's been an interesting thing to see, and that's where a lot of the examples are coming from in terms of companies that are either really excelling in supporting their workers, or the polar opposite, where people are just kind of trying to continue as normal as if nothing's happened to work life, which clearly isn't the case.
No, clearly. We've seen the lines blur quite a bit over the last year. So kind of when we look ahead at this experience conversation, it's going to feature heavily in, I think, talent acquisition and management discussions. But what sort of advice do you have for companies in terms of creating kind of an end-to-end experience that spans all of that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people jump in and start journey mapping and designing new experiences without really questioning or fixing what's broken in the first place. I think that's the first place I always tend to start with clients in terms of, what's really frustrating for employees, what things are not quite working well, and how can we kind of cure some of that first before kind of introducing some fancy stuff. A lot of people move into technology, or they move into new ways of designing experiences. But I suppose it still comes back to the fundamentals in terms of, what is your business standing for? What's the mission that you're actually on? And what are the values that are going to drive that mission of the long-term future of the business, and make it sustainable and a pleasurable experience to be a part of. And that's where we start in terms of, that's the truth of the business, your purpose, your mission, your values. And when you look at a world-class brand, you're really clear on what those things are and what they actually stand for. A world-class brand brings all of those things into the employee experience and designs appropriately, given the context and circumstances. They don't copy others, they don't mimic, they don't try and be anything that they're not. They're really authentic around who they are, they're very comfortable about it, and you can see that through the employee experience. So that tends to be where I start. Certainly I work with employee experience, getting that strategy right, connecting it to the business, and making it connect and align as strongly as possible with the most important things to the business. So whatever it is you're trying to achieve as a brand, let's go after that and bring it into the employee experience.
You mentioned there a starting point. I guess one of the things I'm curious about, is some folks I think or companies they've started down the journey, and I'm wondering what are some of the sticking points that they hit, or maybe areas where they kind of lose their way and maybe get distracted by things that maybe they shouldn't, or are there kind of obstacles that you encounter along that journey?
Yeah, I think every new piece of technology is like, woo, there it is. It's good. Let's go get some of that. And I think it's quite nice if you've already got a firm foundation in place. But I wouldn't be seduced by anything new or faddish, or even if it's really powerful technology, without first having that foundation in place. So, you're really connected, you're co-creating in a very powerful way with your employees. You're a respected and trusted brand already. I think then you can start to experiment with new things and new gadgets and gizmos. But again, a lot of practitioners, they like the shiny new stuff, and they think that's being progressive. But actually being progressive is keeping your employees with you keeping up with trends in terms of what's important with them, what are their expectations? Because really, if you think about it, we're only meeting the expectations of yesterday, today. So by the
Yeah.
time we've met the expectations of yesterday, we're moving on to, okay, what more do we want? What more can we need to deliver our best performance? So I think that's what we need to stay on top of, working with the workforce as a really powerful partner in designing the right type of experience for customers, for key stakeholders. And I think if you do that, you kind of on the right path and right track with employee experience, and you filter out all these distractions that kind of potentially take you away from or dilute your message in the marketplace. I think that's where some clients call me after they've been through all of that. They've bought some technology, didn't work. They've had some employee journey mapping workshops, brilliant. They can't sustain it because they haven't really done some of the fundamentals that they need to do first.
So there's this key distinction between experience and engagement, obviously, but one does sort of feed the other, so to speak. And when we look at what is coming with hybrid work models, we've never really created this particular experience before, or at least many haven't. So what sort of things do companies need to keep in mind as they look to create positive experiences that will drive engagement, but within that hybrid way of thinking?
Yeah, I think this is certainly an important topic to consider right now in the moment because we're in the midst of this global pandemic. So I think practitioners, leaders, and companies are still getting their heads around, okay, what's working, what isn't working, and what can we do in a different way, perhaps. One of my clients very quickly went to the hybrid model, which was 3 days in the office and then 2 days at home. And that seems to be working very well for them. But to do that, they've asked and they've listened at a deeper level than they have done previously to their employees. What do you want? What do you need? And despite a lot of companies, particularly in the technology sector, saying, no, work from home, forget it, it's permanent, we're doing this all the time now. It wasn't really co-created that way. It was more like a corporate diktat. So I think in that context, we have to really take our time to consider what are the needs of our workforce, what are their expectations, and how can we help them support and deliver their best performance. I think that will keep us on track. And the other aspect of this is we're seeing some wonderful approaches based on co-creation. So creating something that works kind of in tandem with the board, which is made up of employees to say, okay, let's take a problem and let's craft up and work up a solution together as a united company. I think still too often we see HR functions going off, just doing their own thing, and then saying, "Here we go, we got something to consult you on and get your feedback on." If we're doing that, it's too slow. We need to involve employees from the first sign of a problem or first challenge that presents itself. I think if you do that in a co-created way, you lead change in a more resilient and it's more accepted as well, the change that comes or the transformation. And you get a lot of better value from your investments in any kind of technology or project.
Okay. Now, there's some thinking that's going into redefining performance. Sorry, and I know this is something that you've looked at with Hex organization. So what are some of the things that HR needs to think about when we think about redefining performance? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think in the context of a human-centered, experience-driven organization, it's inevitable that we'll have to challenge some traditional paradigms around how we get things done, how we organize, how we structure things. And performance is definitely in scope for some experimentation and regeneration, I think. And it has been for some time. No one's quite figured it out in terms of how do you align people in a real powerful way, and how do you make people accountable, how do you incentivize and reward people. It's kind of been a haphazard approach, to be honest, even with significant levels of investment. So what we're seeing in our research, and certainly the way we're advising people, is to focus on human performance. Forget about this management-centric approach that's rigid, bureaucratic, and a lot of it's a waste of time, to be honest. If we focus on those real human conversations, if we focus on outcomes and setting really good, powerful, strong objectives from the get-go. And then all of our job is just to cultivate and ensure that we deliver on that. And I think you can strip out a lot of the bureaucracy, because it becomes more about, how do we help employees achieve these outcomes despite any challenges that they may have in their life experience or, the work experience. Because sometimes we have milestones in life or issues in our personal life where performance is going to dip. But, our organizations, especially after this pandemic, are they going to jump on their employees and say, oh, you've had a big personal crisis or maybe a mental health crisis and your performance is dipped, give us our numbers. It's ridiculous the way some organizations treat their workers and their people. Yeah. Sometimes less than human beings. So I think that's what's changing within this idea of performance, in that we have to respect all the roles that people have in life, and the organizations that do, well, they're more productive, they're more innovative, they're more profitable. It's proven time and time again. If we're there to support people in a very human way, if it's holistic, then they'll run through walls for you in a way that they haven't done for anyone else.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. They're more inclined to collaborate when they feel that way. It seems like there's some pretty progressive ideas in HR right now that have certainly kind of shaped the way things are going in recent times when it comes to the workplace. And I think I saw you had put on a blog post, humans are more than resources. How crucial is that to the sort of grounding of the organization and benefiting society as a whole, kind of what we're talking here, and, human beings? And I guess my next part of that question is, what comes next for HR in delivering a more human-centered experience?
Yeah, I think there's this significant scrutiny now around the role of HR. I think trust in HR as well is a prime time issue. So are we creating really trusted HR functions, really trusted HR professionals and leaders? And I think in many cases we are, but for whatever reason, this idea that humans are resources is really holding us back. And actually you see a lot of progressive, talented, world-class HR leaders. Certainly when they speak to me about my research in my books, they spend the first 5 minutes disassociating themselves from the traditional HR. I'm not that HR. I'm the more human HR. I'm like, why did they do that? It's very interesting, but it's a pattern of behavior I've seen across many different interviews and case studies. And they do it for the simple reason is they want to differentiate themselves from the old kind of enforcement, compliance-driven, management-centered HR that's gone before us in the past. Now, I've been HR for 15 plus years. I've done a master's in HR, but I knew this was a problem within my first 15 minutes of starting my career. it's just obvious the way people interact, and some of the tasks and some of the things that HR gets involved in, and you're like, they get all the blame when things go wrong within the organization for the corporate culture or whatnot, but they never get any of the credit for when things go really well. Some of the things that they do deliver on in terms of service provision. So I think it's time to seriously challenge this idea of as humans being resources, because it will dictate the way we approach people. If we're focused on human experiences, how can you disagree with that? I want to make sure you have a great human experience at work. You have a positive experience so that you deliver a positive experience in life and to our customers. That's it's kind of why we're in business.
Yeah.
But if you lead as human resources, I'm here to treat you like a resource, manage and govern you, and structure things in so that you comply and we can enforce things against you. There's a lot to disagree with that idea. I think it's time we change it.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the name of the book right there. It was a nice, the new book. It was a nice plug there. So you got this new book coming out. It's called Human Experience at Work. So tell us a little bit about this latest one, and what is it that you hope the reader will get from it?
I mean, this one, I think it's bolder than I think I've written before. I think it's based on research, which is very powerful, very valid, and very global. So examples of companies like Ford with 200,000 people in the US, iconic brand. We have GSK, which is one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world. Obviously been very involved in the vaccine and all that kind of progressive stuff that we're looking to save the world, essentially. But we've also got organizations from China and Europe and all over the world. And what I've been looking for really is, how are organizations responding, not just through the pandemic, but before the pandemic as well? How are they creating really human-centered brands that actually perform in practice, not just win kind of awards and things, but they actually deliver bottom line business results based on a human-centered approach? And I think that dictates everything they do within the organization, how they build in the employee experience, how they structure in human experience as a focus within support functions. Some of them don't even have HR functions now, which is interesting. Some of them are redefined HR roles. So yeah, I mean, that's been fascinating. But what's come out really strongly is this absolute total commitment to human beings, in a way that I've never seen before. And then the second thing I would say is, they're actually redefining progress, what business progress actually is. And for us, it's come out really strongly as people, planet, and performance. This is why we do what we do, is to have a positive impact in the world and to have a positive impact on people and to ultimately deliver our best performance in work and life. And I think that's a wonderful idea that more organizations can benefit from.
Awesome. All right. Well, that is all the questions I have for you today. Audience, if you want to hear more from Ben, do sign up for our upcoming employee engagement and experience event, and he'll be speaking at that. We're looking forward to that. But Ben, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you again.
All right.